Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's be honest. Shopping, not my thing. I go to the store. There's a lot of people that, it's just not my thing. It's not football. All right. I spend way too long scrolling websites just looking for something simple like a nice pair of jeans. And I'm either overwhelmed by all the choices or can't find anything my style and end up with stuff that doesn't fit and doesn't work. That's why I use Stitch Fix. You just take a quick style quiz, share your size, your vibe, and your budget, and boom, you're matched with a real human stylists who handle the rest. They take care of the work for you. They send you a fix box with clothes that actually fit and make sense for your life, work, weekends, whatever. It saves you time. You look great, and you don't even have to think about it. That's the best part. It's no risk, all style. Try it all on in the comfort of your home. Keep what works, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns, always, and no subscription required. Plus, get a free try-on for your first fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/podcast to get $20 off your first order, and they'll waive your styling fee. That's stitchfix.com/podcast.
Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game odds on everyday major sports, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app or visit wynnbet.com to start winning. The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. The Suns lost in the NBA Finals, and Devin Booker was on the first thing smoking to the Tokyo Olympics. The Suns now faced the shortest offseason ever and were locked into the 29th pick in the NBA draft. We all debated on who they would pick, and then they picked nobody. The Suns traded the 29th pick and Javon Carter for Brooklyn Nets player Landry Shamet. It's the first competent backup shooting guard Devin Booker has ever had, and they effectively bailed this podcast out from pretending we know anything about the draft. Free agency was next, and even though re-signing their star point guard was priority number one, they also had one massive need, and they filled it with a guy playing in the Olympics with their franchise player. JaVale McGee was signed to a 1-year, $5 million deal to be a backup center for the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul asked for him, and he got him. Speaking of Chris Paul.
Boom! Chris Paul has made it official, re-signing with the Phoenix Suns, 4 years, $120 million.
The point guard returns potentially into his 40s, and the Suns are now dead set on running it back. And that included re-signing Abdul Nader to a 2-year, $4.2 million deal and Frank Kaminsky to another 1-year minimum deal. Somehow the Suns even brought back a player from the dark days, former starting point guard for the playoff Knicks. Elfrid Payton returns to back up the Suns' backup. The roster was basically set just in time for 2 Phoenix Suns players to win gold medals at the Olympics.
And the ball, and Kevin Durant leads the United States to their 4th straight gold medal. Doubted and dismissed. Team USA would not be denied. And Greg Popovich leads them to gold here in Tokyo.
The Western Conference is scrambling, but the Suns stood pat, confident in their returning core. The schedule is now announced, and for the first time in 11 seasons, the Phoenix Suns are playing on Christmas Day, this time against the Golden State Warriors. We are now in a waiting period before the season begins. Will the Suns make a trade? Will they extend their core guys? And now it's time for the 2021-2022 Timeline Podcast Phoenix Suns Season Preview. To the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, the season is about to begin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It is unfortunately a gloomy night here in New York State. It's very rainy, but perfect night to record a podcast, stay inside, talk about the state of the Phoenix Suns as we officially do our preview episode. And thank you, as always, for your intro. Because every year you cut the intro. I just want to be very clear to people. Mike does all the work on the intro every single year. I've never contributed anything to that. So,
well, it was a particularly easy year because the Suns kept the majority of their roster. I was telling you before we started recording that I think one year the intro was 8 minutes long. With so many players left, so many things happened. And this year it was 2.5 minutes, just recapping what happened this offseason. Wasn't that much because it was the offseason felt like it was 2 weeks long. It really just feels like we were just watching basketball not that long ago. And now we're back into the swing of things with a game against the Denver Nuggets on ESPN Wednesday night. Remember when there was one ESPN game a season? It's bizarre to think back on that.
Yeah, and who can blame them for that?
No,
I kind of think back on that, and I remember throwing a shit fit at the time, being on Reddit and being like, we deserve more than, 1 or 2 national TV games or whatever. But now being on the other side of the coin, the Suns have 30 national TV games this year. And yeah, you do kind of look at the schedule and you're like, yeah, I mean, do we really want a team like Minnesota to have more than 1 or 2?
Yeah.
It's maybe a little hypocritical, but that's where we are.
That's right. And it'll be fun to watch that game and see where the Denver Nuggets are at too. What we're going to do is we're going to cover the biggest questions facing the Suns this season. That's what we've done the last few years, and I think it's a good way to sort of get your mind right and really focus on the things that you need to focus on for this season. We talked a lot about this team in the last few weeks, a lot of extra episodes even in the last month or two. So I know we've covered a lot, but I think it's time to narrow our focus, and I think you and I both separately came up with the biggest questions facing the Suns this season. We'll just spitball them back and forth. If they overlap, they overlap. If not, that's cool. I'm going to let you start because I know what your first one is about. Go ahead and go.
Because you cheated. You asked me beforehand. Here's the first question. It's on everyone's mind. Will there be any off-court distractions this year, Mike, that prevent the Phoenix Suns from really locking in the way that we want them to compete for a championship? And obviously when I talk about distractions, there is one potential distraction above all other distractions. You know what I'm talking about. It's the extension talk. Deadline's Monday. This pod should come out Saturday, so hopefully, a good amount of you have a chance to listen before the deadline. If anything crazy happens, we'll be ready to record an emergency pod. But just, so we don't want to spend too much time on it here right now. But Mike, how do you feel? Let's get a vibe check.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super not confident in Robert Sarver at this point. I actually put a poll out on Twitter recently, and 75% of people, I gave them 2 options. If you had to choose either DeAndre Ayton signs a max or he goes to restricted free agency, 75% of people said that he'd sign a max, given those 2 choices only, right? There's other things that could happen. And I was kind of shocked that many people are confident in Robert Sarver because I'm not. And I still think the best case scenario is both of these guys, because it's not just Ayton, is that both of these guys sign an extension before the deadline on Monday.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't see that poll, actually. Was that phrased as what you want to see happen or what you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I said, given these two options, what do you think will happen?
Okay.
Out of these two options. So, yeah. And, wow. I was trying to limit it to see if people were more confident, because to an extent, it could be between those options, right? If the Suns say either you sign this contract we're offering you or you go to restricted free agency, and Ayton says, I'm not signing anything but a max, then it really is just those two choices. Either the Suns kind of fall and give him those options, or DeAndre Ayton blinks and then he signs a contract for less than a max or something like that. But I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case. So it could either be a max contract or restricted free agency. And now I'll ask you this, Sam, and we won't spend too long on this, because by Monday night, I think, or I don't know when exactly the deadline is, but by Monday, people will know. How much of a distraction do you think it'll be if there's no contract signed day one? Because part of me feels like at some point they're just going to be like, oh, well, we still have another year. We're still going to get contracts at the end of this year. And they'll just focus on basketball. I feel like it's more of a distraction right now than like, say, 3 weeks from now. Yeah,
it's definitely a great question. I agree. Once the basketball is actually being played, I think a lot of people will start to forget about this. I think we've also heard encouraging answers from both Ayton and Bridges. Bridges was just asked about it for the first time today in the media scrum, and he said, he echoed that he also wanted to be here. Honestly, if Mikal doesn't sign a deal, and I have some thoughts about that too, but I don't even know if we should address them today. But if Mikal doesn't sign a deal, I still have a lot of faith that he will approach the game professionally. I think an interesting sidebar question is like, so let's say the Suns, let's say the worst case, I don't know if this is a worst case scenario, but a bad scenario where the Suns really are lowballing Ayton. He says he's not going to sign anything other than a max. And so, okay, it's going to go to restricted free agency. And this legitimately does affect Ayton's engagement, his level of engagement in year 4. Once we actually start to see that, I'm not saying this will happen, I'm just saying what if it does happen? Is public perception still going to be on DeAndre Ayton's side at that point? I'm just kind of curious what that actually starts to look like. If, we're in December, January, the Suns are in the playoff hunt, maybe they're the second, the third seed. Right now, everyone's on DA's side. Right. And they have every right to be, given the performance that he gave in the playoffs, given Sarver's reputation. But I just wonder if the leverage starts to increase for the Suns the further you drag this out. And if we actually start now, if Ayton comes out and he, wants to prove them wrong based on the lowball offer, and he does exactly what he's told to do, again, not that he should necessarily even have to do this, but if he approaches the game the right way, has another career season, builds on everything, obviously he's going to get a million max offers in free agency that the Suns will have to sign or match, and then we'll see how disgruntled he is. But I'm just wondering if he goes the opposite direction, and he really takes this as a slap in the face, and it does become a distraction, and his play does worsen, what does the public perception start to look like? I'd be really curious
interesting.
To see.
What I find interesting is that's the question you asked, because I thought you were going to say, do they look to trade him?
No, I don't think they do. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think they do. I know.
It just felt like
brought
we were
up
leading
the possibility.
To that question.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. I don't know that the public perception will be on his side anymore. I really don't know at that point, but I wonder, I don't know that people just, the public as a whole pays enough attention to the game-to-game basis, on a game-to-game basis, to really get on him like that. As long as he kind of does well in the biggest games, people will just recognize those biggest games. That's kind of what people do. And I think to an extent that's even what's happening right now. When we're talking about this conversation, we're not necessarily talking about his inconsistencies for the first few months of the season. People have glossed over that, and rightfully so, because he played his best basketball at the end of the year. So I'm not sure that people will zero in on inconsistencies in December or January, as long as he continues to play well at the end of the season, and that's probably the right approach.
But I think we can definitely foresee the same conversations, if there is no extension for either guy, or even if it's just for Mikal, having to rehash these conversations on a weekly basis throughout this year.
Yeah.
would take a toll on me, let alone DeAndre Ayton's teammates and the coaching staff.
Well, it'll be easy. It'll be easy for me. If they don't sign a deal, you and I are going to put a moratorium on talking about their contracts until the end of the year, and we're just not going to talk about it because there's no reason to.
That's fine with me, but it's still going to be really fucking annoying. Yeah. And all the more reason to just get it done right now, man.
Look, we're doing 2 podcasts a week now, Sam. We're not going to talk about it on a week-to-week basis. We can't.
I don't know. I'll try to hold you to it, but I also just want to reiterate now because people really haven't been talking about the McHale side of it.
I know.
So we should briefly touch on that before
it's
kind
really,
of moving on.
Yeah, and I just brought it up recently. We were on the what's Mark's podcast called? We'll give him a plug.
It's the Premium Hoops
podcast with Mark Schindler, good friend of ours. And my expectation is I'm less worried about Mikal Bridges because his agent hasn't played the media game. I know you tweeted about that today too as well. It just makes me feel like that's a good sign because that's their only play at this point.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good point. That's why I put it out there too. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, if you're not going to play that card, then that's probably a good sign that you're not. Because I think you said it on the podcast too. Like fans would be on his side too, as much as they are for DeAndre Ayton's. And as far as fan pressure, like we'd be there. I'd be there.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, shout out. We already have a few Suns fans. I'm sorry, I forget the name of the Twitter handle. We already have a few Suns fans who, as far as I know, are protesting outside of the Suns practice facility with signs that say "Pay Ayton, pay Bridges." I've seen this on Reddit.
I didn't see that. That's great.
Yeah. So there's a few of them. They may grow in size.
Let's move on from this because it's going to be over by Monday.
Do you want to give me just real quick? Do you want to give me just a prediction? What do you think happens by Monday?
I think that Mikal Bridges would sign. I'm not confident DeAndre Ayton will.
Yeah, I kind of have a suspicion that they've made the agreement in secret. I don't know this, but I have a suspicion that they have a deal inked with Mikal that they don't want to announce until Monday because they're hoping that they can get Ayton signed and bring them both out in a press conference and do it all together and get all the goodwill. But if by Monday they don't have anything with Ayton, then you still need to announce the Bridges deal if there is one. I just have a hunch, hunch. We'll see what happens.
Robert Sarver told Raja Bell once, "I could extend you, but I'm not going to. Do you know why? Because I don't have to." That means Robert Sarver does not like to do things before he has to do them, and I think he's going to push it as far as he can with DeAndre Ayton in order to make him prove that he deserves a max.
What a useless dick measuring contest this thing has become. But all right, let's move on.
Relevant to this, and I'm going to jump around because I think it's a nice segue here. Do they make a trade? Do the Suns make a trade? This is one of my biggest questions of this season. Now, this is not necessarily related to DeAndre Ayton or Mikal Bridges, although if they don't sign contracts and they're unhappy here, that could be a disaster that forces a trade, and that would be Suns fans coming for Robert Sarver on a daily basis, I think. And I'm going to hold you guys to that. We should. Unrelated to that, though, that could be Thaddeus Young, for example. He's available now, potentially, based on, speculation in The Athletic. Or something else that we're not even thinking about, because what happened last year, nothing big, but then they all of a sudden had Torrey Craig, who ended up playing significant minutes in the playoffs. And I think this roster is pretty set, right? But injuries do happen, things do change, and as the season rolls along, there are specific things that come to light as far as holes in the roster or things that need to be fixed that could come up, and then they could make a trade. Now, I think that making a trade at this point with this team, there's obvious guys. There's Jalen Smith. How is he going to make his way into the rotation? There's Dario Saric. Valuable in the future, but at the very least, a contract right now. That means that if a team is looking to get rid of a guy that makes a little extra money, Dario Saric can be moved. Beyond that, if they trade anyone, those are guys that we're all pretty attached to, maybe outside of Abdul Nader, but he can play his way into our hearts, I think. So it'll be interesting to see if they end up doing something, because this team is very good and they could potentially see a chance to improve that might actually piss fans off. What do you think?
I think it depends on the whole health question. I know we'll get into that. Assuming a decent slate of health, though, where you're not trying to plug in major holes, I really have seen very few GMs at the NBA level with as much conviction in their own beliefs as James Jones. Last year I felt like I was kind of begging for a trade at certain points, or at least to scan the buyout market. And it, obviously they ended up with Torrey Craig, turned into a fantastic acquisition. But, Yeah, if they make any moves, I would love Thad Young. We've talked about that to death, but I'm just tempted to say it's going to be another Torrey Craig type acquisition if anything happens at all.
Yeah.
That would be great. I mean, by Torrey Craig, I mean they're going to get a guy for a minimum contract and hope he plays as well as Torrey Craig.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily going to happen. You got to trust in your scouting, yada, yada. Hope that you can, take a guy in a bad system, put him into your system, he looks better. Maybe it happens again.
Right.
But yeah, giving up assets, making a major move, even moving like an Ayton or Bridges type for, I know we've talked about just the possibility of something like that in the past. I don't really see it right now.
Let me tell you this. Let me
lie.
ask you this. Say they stumble out of the gate.
Yeah, well, there will be people calling for it.
Yeah,
I know you will.
I think that's one of the, I honestly think if they don't look if they don't look good right out of the gate here, they should.
It'll be Mike's trade of the day, not even Mike's trade of the week.
They should look good right out of the gate. And if they stumble, and if we're 25 games in and they're hovering around 500 or below 500, then there's reasons to make it. They have assets. Like, it's not like they don't have assets here. They do have assets. And if for some reason the chemistry's not there, which I don't believe will happen, for the record, for the people listening to this, I think they're going to be great right out of the gate. But that's the expectations that makes people do things that maybe they wouldn't do in other circumstances. So, assuming health, if they stumble out of the gate and they don't look good 25 games in, if we're hovering around the end of December, early January, and it's just not working, then I think there's a chance. So I don't think that'll be the case, but that's something to look out for. It's
unfortunate because when they came out of the gate kind of stumbling last year, we excused it to an extent, but I still remember those early season losses against. I think there was one against the Pistons, one against the Wizards.
Back to back against the Nuggets sucked.
Yeah, back to back against the Nuggets definitely sucked. But at least the Nuggets are a good team. Like there were some there were some teams that objectively sucked that the Suns should not have lost to in the first couple months. Yeah. Now that we have the elevated expectations, I can't wait for what the online discourse looks like. Because every team drops a few games like that a year.
Yeah.
The question is, when's going to be the first time this season, and how much do people freak out, and how many trade offers do they throw out on Twitter in the following 24 hours after that first game? Mm-hmm. We'll see. But I'll try not to work myself up into too much of a frenzy when the time comes.
What do you got?
Another question?
Yeah. Let's move on.
I'm debating, so this is going out of order. No, I'm going to save this one for later. All right, my next question. We kind of touched on this with, it was either Mark or Dan. We possibly touched
We've
on it.
We've talked a lot about the Suns this week.
But we talked a lot about the Suns this week. But this one, will Chris Paul do the unprecedented?
Why
are you laughing?
I almost just said no very loudly.
So Chris Paul
bit my tongue.
As we all know, I think we came out of to contextualize for those who don't know, who are thinking, what the fuck is he talking about? I think we came out of the internal development series saying the key question to the season was, how do you handle the development, if you're Monty Williams, the rest of the coaching staff, how do you handle the development of all these younger guys and turn them into the best possible long-term pieces while also remaining as good as possible? Mm-hmm. The key to all of that is Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. So is Chris Paul going to play 32 minutes a game again? Mm-hmm. Or is he maybe going to go down to 27 or 28? Is Chris Paul going to try to play every game? Make sure they win absolutely as many games as possible?
Yes,
Or is he going to you have to at least let me set up the question. Or Mr. V. Hill, is he going to rest the second night of back-to-backs? Yeah. You know, and above all, even more than any of those things, is Chris Paul going to dominate the half-court offense? You know, not in the sense that he takes a shot every time, because we know he's an unselfish player, but just in the fact that he initiates every play.
Yes.
He keeps the offense running all the time.
That's interesting.
Or is he going to say, okay, Mikal Bridges, you take the ball up this time. Let's see what you got, kid, you know? So I think
keep going.
keep going. Literally, keep going. That is definitely one of the key questions to the season. What do you think?
I think that last part is actually kind of interesting, because I think there is an element of, like Monty Williams talked about it. We brought it up on our last episode. At this point, I'm already in the place where I can't remember if it was Patreon or main feed, but they are tracking the dribbling, and they're aware of the fact that the more dribbles that Chris Paul and Devin Booker have to perform, the more tired they are, the more worn out they are by the end of the game. So I think that he's gonna play as much as possible. I think he's going to play as many minutes as his body will allow. obviously Monty has some control over that too. But I think there is a chance that he takes a few more plays off the ball, and that could make a big difference. Now he has to be willing, of course, to catch and shoot threes. Maybe throw him that grenade with the pin pulled with only 2 or 3 seconds on the shot clock, and he'll definitely shoot it at that point. But beyond that, I think there's a chance of that. I just think I think we're gonna get a quote from Chris Paul at some point this season. If somebody asks him if he's going to rest, he's going to say something like, well, we're just going to have to blow teams out in the first 3 quarters so I could rest the fourth. I think that's going to be his goal here. He wants to play. And there's literally been no quotes ever from him that make me think that he's going to rest. And maybe if the Suns have an extremely good record 3 quarters of the way through the season, the last quarter he can take a few games off. But beyond that, I'd be surprised.
By the way, you mentioned those catch and shoot threes. Chris Paul last season, 47% on catch and shoot threes.
Jesus.
Not bad.
Yeah.
He took 1 per game.
Yeah, and they're wide open. And the shot clock's at 2 or 3 because that's the only time he shoots them. You got any other thoughts on that one?
Also shot 37% on pull-ups, by the way. That's pretty damn good for off the dribble, but we know he's good at that.
People don't think of him as a shooter, though. It is kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't, runs a very egalitarian offense. No, I think we can basically... save that for the Patreon. I think we can basically move on. What's your next question?
Can the Suns stay healthy? I almost hate to bring this up because
this is always a cop-out question, but I'll allow you to have it because it's such a big narrative.
Well, what I don't like about it is there's no analysis. We just say I hope so, and I don't know.
Hope so.
Yeah.
What's next? Okay.
But here's what I'll say. And I'm gonna read this directly off of ESPN when they wrote about this. Suns players missed just 99 games due to injury last season. This is rest and non-COVID-19 illness included. And that was the 3rd lowest total in the league behind the Dallas Mavericks and the Milwaukee Bucks. 99 games total for the Suns, Mavericks 77, Milwaukee Bucks 88. In particular, Phoenix's starting 5 was quote-unquote unusually healthy. Mikal Bridges played all 72 games, of course. DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul missed a total of 10 games combined, and only the Chicago Bulls lost fewer wins above replacement players due to injuries last season. Mm-hmm. So not only were the Suns extremely healthy last season, their best players were extremely healthy last season, which makes a huge difference.
Huge.
So, regular season, and I think we should focus on regular season. We'll get to the playoffs eventually. We're talking regular season right now. They were extremely healthy last season. And I'm going to ask this now. Maybe Dom, if you're listening, Dom, I would like somebody to plot out teams or players that drive the most and then games missed due to injury, because part of me wonders if the fact that the Suns just don't get to the rim very often is related to the fact that they don't have a lot of injuries, because that is kind of the most dangerous play, sort of running and jumping at the rim, crashing into guys, falling to the floor, stuff like that.
I've never tried to look that up. I have to imagine that someone's researched that before.
Yeah.
Somebody
make a plot. Plot out drives to the rim per game, because it's got to be on a per game basis, and then games missed due to injury. I'm just curious. Maybe the last few years, last year or something like that, because I wonder if that has something to do with it. Like, I'm just looking for a reason the Suns were so healthy that was not just luck, but maybe it was just luck. What do you think?
It often is just luck, and we forget that there is huge. You think continuity is just a meme. It's not a meme, folks. There is a huge correlation, arguably, with this more than anything else, between the teams that have the most continuity get to log the most minutes with just their 5 best guys, and regular season winning percentage. And the Jazz were way up there last season. The Suns were way up there last season in terms of continuity. So it was no surprise that they ended up with the best record. In fact, going into the playoffs, I remember that's something that I plotted at one point just because I wanted to see that correlation. And one reason I was so scared of Brooklyn, I mean, you'd have to be an idiot not to be scared of Brooklyn last year with their 3 superstars, but they were the team that most clearly defied that logic. Like, they had by far, I think Brooklyn still lost like 20 games last season or something, even in the shortened schedule, but they were by far the team with the best record, where they had their 3 stars play together 10 times or something ridiculous. So, there was every reason to fear that team. This year, as we know, shaping up like it's going to be a little bit different, which maybe makes things interesting. But yeah, got to stay healthy. It's and you know what? The guy who scares me the most, because I think it's natural to talk about Devin Booker and Chris Paul, but it's still Ayton for me. I was even talking about it today. I like Frank Kaminsky a lot as a third string center. Jalen Smith as a fourth string center is also like really good. Like the Suns have depth at that position, but it's just Ayton brings so much more to the table than any other big on this roster. The idea of missing him, like, to some freak accident that, could keep him out for 20 or 25 games again or whatever. I just don't know how well the Suns would be able to weather that storm. We were lucky that we didn't have to see it last year, but that's definitely still like my nightmare scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think Devin Booker missing an extended period of time or Chris Paul missing an extended period of time would be a problem too. As much as we joked about Elfrid Payton recently being really good, it's just not something that you want. Backup is obviously better than starting, but it is interesting with Devin Booker though. Like the Suns have a backup shooting guard for the first time in a long time, and that's kind of nice to have, that they have some sort of depth there. But beyond that, I think it gets a little, I don't know. I guess we're kind of lucky that Cameron Payne and Chris Paul can play together if it comes down to that, because they played so many minutes together at the end of last season and in the playoffs that they clearly have some sort of chemistry there. But yeah, we need these guys to stay healthy, and I think that this question and these stats and just how much of an outlier they are compared to some other teams that were, other than the Bucks, by the way, that were there at the end of the season, I think that you could make the case to some players on the team to prioritize their health, and whether that be Devin Booker or Chris Paul, whoever, you kind of need them to do that, or maybe even Mikal Bridges. You can make the case that he ran out of steam a little bit at the end of the year. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm sure they have data that they can track that, but you got to wonder.
He ran out of steam a little bit in the playoffs. He had a killer stretch in the regular season. But you know what? I'm thinking about your point again, and how many times on this pod have I gotten after Mikal for not getting to the rim enough, for stopping short, taking that little mid-range jumper, and yet here he is, an Iron Man who's played every game since middle school. There is a reason for that. Maybe if he tried to dunk it over everyone's heads all the time, he would have missed 50 games in the NBA by now. We don't know. It's tough to balance that.
Mm-hmm. You weren't. You talked about DeAndre Ayton missing time. You weren't impressed with the insane JaVale McGee per 36 numbers.
His per 36. You know what's funny? Who was it? Was it Nick Anderson who said that the player that most reminded him of Shaq is DeAndre Ayton? Which, by the way, very funny and ridiculous.
Unfair to both those guys. Unfair to Ayton, unfair to Shaq.
So like 15 minutes later, I saw Kellen tweet out JaVale's per 36 numbers in the preseason, which was like 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6 blocks, or something ridiculous. And I was like, this is the real modern day Shaq. This is because those are actually Orlando or Lakers Shaq numbers. He's not going to keep it up. And the issue of I've always had with JaVale is like, okay, can he not pick up 5 fouls by the time he's been on the floor for 15 minutes? So like that's the big thing.
I wonder what were the. I'm gonna look it up. What were his per 36 stats for fouls? Did you happen to see that?
I did look it up.
I didn't find that either. Let me see if I can do it. Just 1 second. I want to know before we move on from this one. And that was my question, right? So you can prepare your next one there. Let's see. Per 36 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's not coming up. I apologize. I'm on the wrong year. Preseason, per 36 minutes, JaVale McGee.
I'm going to guess 6.
Fouls. You're going to guess, okay. Mm-hmm. Player fouls. 5.8.
There we go.
So he can stay in, technically.
It's not terrible. Yeah. Coaches get weird about it, though.
Out every like 3 out of every 4 games, basically.
Coaches get weird about it, where it's like, you pick up your 3rd foul in the 2nd quarter and you're done.
Yeah.
Envision JaVale's starting. There's no way he doesn't not do that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think doing that. He does the frustration. I guess I'm going to call those frustration fouls, Jokic fouls now.
Oh wow,
he did it at the worst time. But like if he misses at the rim and another player gets the ball, he just swipes at them immediately. And like that's the type of thing that you'd have to clean up if you have to start. Like if Ayton misses 5 games, you can't just swipe at a guy because you're mad that you missed a layup. Just run back to the other side of the floor and play defense. You'll be fine.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it. And trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Ro Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Rose Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment, plus it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you can go back to back to back, round after round after round. Ro connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to ro.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.
All right, you got another one?
Yeah, my next question, it kind of stems from yours. So your question was, can the Suns stay healthy? This next question is, can Jamal Murray stay healthy? No, I'm kidding. It's it's actually different. It's
okay.
I have a feeling there's no way you didn't cover this in some capacity as well. So I have a feeling this will be overlap. Can the Suns find that third consistent scorer?
Ah, yes.
We've been talking.
Let's spend
about
some
it.
time on this because I wrote who steps up because I'm putting it on the players at this point because so many people are going to want to put it on to Monty. And it's on the players, but yes.
I hope
break
Monty,
it down. What do you think?
I hope Monty doesn't have to step up and be that third scorer, man. He's a great coach. But
did you see the highlights for his 50th birthday that he had that like snatch block and like some dunks?
Oh yeah.
That was great. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think? Break it down.
You a little bit. Well, you know what I think is I think it's gonna be Mikal Bridges. I think the way that the Suns have used him in sets in preseason has been really interesting. Unfortunately, we didn't see as much of that in that Portland game as we did in the Lakers game before kind of Devin Booker returned to the lineup. But I think, all signs indicate that Mikal Bridges is going to be handling some pick and rolls this year, and I'm really, really excited to see that. I also, for the record, think DeAndre Ayton's a really good candidate for his scoring load to increase this season, just based on a bunch of little things, really. I don't think he's going to average only 14 points per game again, but I don't necessarily see a huge increase coming for him either. I'm not really sure that the Suns are going to use him in a different way. I look at this question, and for me, the answer in my mind is pretty clearly Mikal Bridges, but do you agree?
I think I do, but let me just ask you this before we just start talking about the players. Can we just talk about why that's important? Why do you think it's important that somebody steps up and becomes that third scoring option? Because like the Suns last season, it was technically DeAndre Ayton, and the ball just moved around a lot. Different guys found it. Different guys were able to finish. Why do you think it's important that somebody steps up and becomes that third option for this team?
So self-creation is the thing that has the highest premium in the NBA by far. People talk about defense is important, shooting is important, playmaking is important. All of these things are important skills in a vacuum, but if you look at the guys who get paid the highest, it's the guys who can create for themselves in difficult situations, late in the fourth quarter and clutch situations. So you can literally never have too many of these types of guys as long as they play in an unselfish system to benefit each other. And if you look at the skills that Miguel has, the foundation that he already has, we know he's such an unselfish player. So it's you don't have to worry about him fitting in with like it's not going to be like an Andrew Wiggins situation or something, right, where he's kind of like taking the ball out of your real star player's hands when you don't want him to. You know that he can fit into the scheme and take smart shots, and at the same time, you're trying to embolden him to have confidence in himself within freelance situations. So that's really what it is. But it's also injury insurance at the end of the day.
It's what exactly happens? What I was gonna.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. What if you go into the playoffs and Chris Paul is playing with one shoulder again, playing with one hamstring again?
What if you're in the NBA Finals and Chris Paul has a hurt hand and Devin Booker has a hurt hamstring? Because that just happened. And then you need a third guy that's capable of doing that. And you're not throwing him into the fire too early because he's done it all season.
And you know what? To that point, what if the Milwaukee Bucks had their reigning MVP, Giannis, playing with one knee, and so they had games where it was Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday who carried the offensive burden? That literally happened for them. They had the third guy in Holiday. Now, granted, much of Holiday's value comes from his defense. We can say the same thing for McHale. He just gave you just enough offense for it to be all worth it as kind of a complete package deal. And they found that third scorer at just the right time. The Suns need a similar thing.
You brought up DeAndre and how his scoring load could go up for the Suns this season. And I was just sort of thinking about this as a whole and thinking about how it felt like there was a certain point of the season where DeAndre Ayton clicked and everything worked really well. Now, admittedly, that was partially on the defensive end, but I think to an extent, like offensively, he just figured out how to play with Chris Paul too, and on Chris Paul as well, figuring out how to play with DeAndre Ayton. I looked up his stats. I just looked up his splits as you were talking. Pre-All-Star and post-All-Star. Listen to this. Kind of crazy. Pre-All-Star, DeAndre Ayton scored 14.5 points per game. Post-All-Star, DeAndre Ayton scored 14.4 points per game. Almost exactly the same. Mm-hmm. I thought for sure there would be a bigger difference. Here's where the bigger difference comes from. 10.5 field goal attempts, 10.5 field goal attempts pre-All-Star, 9.4 post-All-Star. To be able to score exactly the same number of points on more than one full field goal attempt per game is massive. And that's a difference between 59% field goal percentage and 66%.
There you go.
Yeah. It's huge.
Well, and I remember at one point last season I also posted the shot chart, and you saw a lot of those like 18-foot elbow jumpers in the first half of the season and barely any in the second half.
Yeah, it was 0.5 3-point attempts per game pre-All-Star.
That's a good point too.
0.1 post-All-Star. So
but you know what? He's taking them again in preseason, and I don't mind. He did hit one.
If he's going to take any, it's preseason's time to do it. I think it's definitely the time to do it because you got to prove that it's game ready, not just practice ready. The free throw attempts, do you want to guess if those went up or stayed the same or went down?
They stayed the same.
Exactly the same. 2.5 free throw attempts per game. I was just kind of interested because I thought for sure I could make the case that it could be DeAndre Ayton understanding the offense a little better. And there is a case to be made there. It's the efficiency case. Because I think for him, it's difficult because until he can find ways to catch the ball further away from the basket and create for himself, it's a little harder. He has to count on people giving him the ball near the rim. But I do think he found ways to make himself more available near the rim. He found smarter times to cut that made the passing lanes easier on guys like Cameron Payne, Chris Paul, or Devin Booker. And those two things could lead to him scoring more. And for Mikal Bridges, it's a whole different conversation. For him, it's about what he can do after a pump fake. It's about what he can do after that first dribble. And if he can start to create for himself from there, it's going to be him too. And I think it's a really great scenario that the Suns have two guys that we can talk about as the potential to take that leap. And I really hope, as we open this podcast with, that there's no distraction coming into that. Maybe the Suns view DeAndre Ayton playing for that max contract one more year as a good thing, as far as when they ask him to do things, there's more of a motivation to do that. I hope that's not the case. But maybe that is something that they actually view as one of their options here. It could be either one of those guys. I think you're right. If I had to bet, I'd probably choose Mikal Bridges too, just because of the way the Suns offense works and the way that those guys individually play offense. What do you think would be better for the Suns? Do you think there's a case to be made that it would be better if it was DeAndre Ayton?
Better. I don't know. I think the way the Suns offense currently works, we've seen them running the same sets in a way between Mikal Bridges and Devin Booker in a way that's kind of interchangeable. I also think Mikal Bridges is a really just unselfish player. Like, even if you give him more pick and roll touches, his shot attempts will go up, but also he's going to get more assists. Like, giving Mikal Bridges more touches could benefit DeAndre Ayton too.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a case that those are two guys who have had great chemistry in the past. So I think, yeah.
I'm sort of my last two. I'm going to wrap them up here because I also
real
said
quick.
Up. I'm going to stay on this. I'm going to stay on this.
Okay.
Because my other question is DeAndre Ayton related to it's what does DeAndre Ayton become? So you kind of teed me up there, so I just want to wrap it up into this. Well, I want to ask you though, like say it's better that DeAndre Ayton becomes that guy, because some people truly believe this, that it would be better if it were Ayton than Mikal.
Well,
Bridges.
yeah, it would be great. It really just depends on what he adds.
That's exactly why I wanted to bring this up. What do you think it is that he would need to add to his game for him to make it better than what Mikal Bridges currently does now? Mikal Bridges is extremely efficient as well. Both of these guys are. So what do you think it would need to be? I know we've talked about this in our internal development conversation.
We've talked about this aplenty. I'll frame it to you in the form of a multiple choice question. Okay. Fill in the prompt. Mm-hmm. Sam would like DeAndre Ayton to take X number of dribbles. Option A, 0 dribbles. Option B, 1 dribble. Option C, 2 dribbles. Option D, 3 dribbles. Mike.
Yeah.
You're on the clock.
I mean, it's got to be 1 because of what we talked about. But that means him catching the ball and facing up from what, 15 feet away?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
he can do it.
Yeah,
he can do it. We're talking about an offense. So, okay, when we talk about this, here the reason I say this, for those who maybe didn't listen to the internal development in our series and are kind of only checking in with us now, that's fine. I know you're out there. We're talking about the concept of Ayton really becoming a short roll finisher, Amari style. Not necessarily with the flair of Amari. He could still be a finesse finisher, but it's just about having the confidence to catch it out there, put the ball on the floor, take 1 dribble, and finish. The reason I talk about that so much is because you look at how the Suns' offense works, and the opportunities are already there. Just watch Ayton move in the offense. He can take those by force. Dominate the game by force, if you will. I didn't even mean to bring up that word.
With force, yeah.
Dominate the game with force, sorry. But there it is. Whereas these other things, you could add more post-ups to his game, but it would look kind of awkward with the other stuff that the Suns are trying to do. He could shoot more threes.
And I think it would be he'd have to become a really great passer out of the post, which might be possible, because I think...
Might be possible.
Yeah.
But it's
you'd
not...
have to, because you'd have to mix in a lot of those, and that means that the double is going to come quite often if it becomes effective, and he's got to be good at that.
What I'm saying is that there are two sides to this coin. On the one hand, it's really tough to take a guy who kind of has never had this aggressive mindset and say, well, start being aggressive. It's just tough to build confidence in people like that. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah.
It's clearly the dribble. Year 4 for DeAndre Ayton. Year 4. He clearly thinks he's capable of more. There are people who agree with that he's capable of more. If he does not develop that 1 dribble, are we giving up on it? Is it possible? Because we haven't seen it, Sam. We haven't seen it. He hasn't done it yet.
No, I know.
That's a long time in the NBA without being able to dribble once. We're not asking for a lot.
Relax. Hey. I know. I've said the same in the past, but I also saw that poster dunk on Michael Porter Jr. in the playoffs. He's done it once or twice. And
everyone's done it once or twice. We can find JaVale doing that. We can find lots of players doing it.
No, you don't understand. You don't understand. JaVale is a different breed. He's a different type of guy.
Right.
JaVale is uber.
I mean, that's kind of my point. That's
Ayton
kind of my point.
Ayton is so much talent and so much skill packed into one body without the confidence. JaVale is the opposite of all that. Not that he's an untalented player, but you know what I mean? Like, JaVale has entirely too much confidence for what he's capable of.
Yeah.
It's a completely different situation.
He doesn't have the skills that DeAndre Ayton has. I think you're 100% right about that. He does have different skills that he's very good at.
Yeah, he does. He's a great
The bag
shot blocker.
is deeper in some ways for DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, it absolutely should be. He has a better natural foundation to build on as well.
I think that one of the things this year is that This is the highest pressure year for DeAndre, and yet that's before the contract is signed. That's, you know what I mean? Like, if it's not signed, it becomes even higher pressure for him. There is an element to this where it's year 4, number 1 overall pick. You got to show some offensive development. There hasn't been a lot, I'll be honest. There hasn't been a lot. The things that he was good at last year, he was good at his first year. There just hasn't been a ton that he's developed offensively.
Yeah, you're talking about offense, yeah.
Yeah, defensively make sure. Is a whole different conversation because he's become one of the best defensive players in the NBA. But
his value is skyrocketed there.
When he talks about, when he goes to the media on media day and says that he did what you asked him to do last year, now he wants to do more, he himself is putting that pressure on him. And I think we have to acknowledge that pressure now exists. We're in year 4. I think that there's, to an extent, if he cannot take that one dribble a few times a game at least, that's kind of a bad thing for his development. We're not seeing enough positive, actual progression there. Yeah. And we need to see it this year.
I'm inclined to agree.
He's putting that pressure on himself. I'm not the only one doing this.
No, you're right. I think that really is the distinction there, that this isn't coming out of nowhere. This is DeAndre saying he wants to play that role. Well, okay, if you're going to say that, you have to prove it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's totally fair.
And that's why I worded the question as who steps up, because I think there is there's a similar type of pressure on Mikal Bridges. But I think the difference is the pressure from Mikal Bridges, like now it's coming from Monty Williams, it's coming from Chris Paul, which is a specific kind of pressure too. But you know what? I think there is DeAndre Ayton for the rest of his career will carry the weight of being the number 1 overall pick, whether or not all of you listening think it's fair that people put that pressure on him. Does not matter, because it now exists and it's factored into the way people talk about his contract. They're not talking about DeAndre Ayton should get a max contract just based off what he done. They're also saying there hasn't been a number 1 overall pick that hasn't signed this max extension since who knows when. This is going to be part of his career for a long time.
Anthony Bennett or whoever.
The pressure on him it's going to be hot this year, and I think that he deserves it, and I think it's up to him to step up, just like it is for the rest of the players on the team.
I'm just thinking about those comments that he made again, and it's like, he's so good at defense at this point, but it's like, has Rudy Gobert ever gone out to the media and been like, oh yeah, I could average 8 assists a game if I wanted to. I just, they have me confined to this big man role.
Maybe he has, to be honest.
I don't know. I haven't followed Rudy Gobert's career well enough to know, I guess, but I suspect he hasn't, which is why it's the fact that Ayton is saying that sort of stuff. There is an element of, you're doing this to yourself, dude.
Would you rather he says, I'm going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year, just watch, or something like that? Like that's probably where you would rather, you'd rather he embraced it, right?
I mean, no, I like him putting pressure on himself to improve offensively, because that gives the Suns the best ceiling long term. However, if he came out and said, oh, I'm going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year, I would believe him. Like that's something that I think is very feasible and could happen very soon. Honestly, Mike, I am not a betting man. Online sports betting is not even legal in New York State yet. I know it is.
Wink. Yeah.
Arizona. Wink, wink. I know you guys get bombarded with stuff all the time, including from us, but it's hey, it just happens if you live in the state of Arizona right now. Yeah. But anyway, my point is, I've looked up some of these odds for Defensive Player of the Year. DeAndre Ayton is very underrated. Very underrated. I'm talking about, I don't remember the exact odds, but I'm talking about he'll be somewhere buried down like 15th in a list of who are the most likely candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. He'll be behind guys like Matisse Thybulle, who's probably going to play 20 minutes a game. And it's like, Gobert is always first, as he is. But I do think this might be the year of voter fatigue. Gobert's won it so many times.
The Utah disaster year that I've been teasing. It's a Utah disaster year. Just watch. Just watch.
I think Utah's going to be good. But I think they've been good for so long, and Gobert has won that award so many times without them doing anything in the playoffs, that we're going to start to see a sort of counterbalance against him in the voting process. And who are people going to pivot to when they're voting for Defensive Player of the Year? They're going to pivot to another big man, because big men usually win it, unless there's a wing player who goes crazy, which happens sometimes. Kawhi, Draymond, whatever. But I think they're going to go to another big man on one of the best teams in the NBA, one of the best 5 or 6 teams in the NBA. The Suns have a very good chance of being that. People are going to look at Ayton as the defensive anchor. I'm just saying, I'd look at those odds. I think they're not half bad.
Yeah,
this is not financial advice. This is not financial advice. I'm just saying, I think I can spot a good one when I see one. And yeah, if he went out and said, "Oh, I'm going to be Defensive Player of the Year," yeah, I'd totally believe
I'm the big man in the paint. Nobody can challenge me. Those types of things I think would have literally affect the line. Like that voting line would change, or that betting line would change. So yeah. All right. That's my 4. Do you have another one? Your last one.
Yeah, I do.
Right?
I guess this is my last one, and I'm glad I'm bringing it up last because it's not actually Suns related, but it is kind of related to what you were talking about with the trade thing aspect earlier, because it's all about the momentum. There are things you can control, and then there are things you can't control. And so my question here is simply, how is the rest of the Western Conference going to shake out? What are going to be the twists and turns that we see? This whole Lakers experiment, do we think that's actually going to work? Is Kawhi Leonard going to be fully healthy and ready to go by the playoffs? And should that scare the shit out of us? Should Jamal Murray's return scare the shit out of us? There's a million things you could talk about within the scope of this conference, but all of those, depending on how it shakes out, definitely puts additional pressure on James Jones, where maybe he feels compelled to make a move at some point, or maybe he's already factored all of that into his calculations before the season. And like I said, he's just a man of very strong conviction. But what do you think?
I mean, I think the thing that scares me the most out of what you just said is Kawhi Leonard being fully healthy. Kawhi Leonard is the type to take as long as he needs for injuries, which I think every NBA player should, because if you don't, you're putting yourself at risk for further injuries, as we've seen with Kevin Durant or whoever you want to mention. But that's probably the team that scares me the most. It remains one of the worst matchups for the Suns. I do think I'm excited to see the Suns this year play a team that played that level of switch-happy defense against them. Because I think that they saw what happened in the playoffs, and to an extreme way, Devin Booker is the one that killed it. It wasn't until his nose was broken that it became more of a problem, and I think Patrick Beverley's off that team now, so maybe that matchup is not as bad as it was. But you know what?
Yeah.
If they start putting Kawhi Leonard on him, that's a different story. Like, that's totally a completely different story.
It's totally different. And let me just tell you what scares me. 538 came out with their projections based on their Raptor advanced stat, so where they think the standings are going to fall. They have the Suns in the 2nd seed, and that they actually, so they have like a team strength rating of like everyone at full strength, who's the most talented team, which is slightly different. They actually have the Suns as the most talented team in the Western Conference. But they have them with the 2nd best record, I think, due to some strength of schedule stuff. So they actually have the Jazz ahead of us. Anyway, the point is, so they do that, and then a few columns down, they have percent chance to win the NBA Finals, percent chance to make the playoffs.
Right.
They have the Suns in the 2nd seed.
Right.
They have the Clippers in the 7th seed. So a first round, depending on how the play-in shakes out, a first round matchup against the Clippers.
They might not even make the playoffs.
But then they have, based on their projection, which just says Kawhi is going to be back for the playoffs, they have the Clippers as the most likely team to make the finals in the Western Conference by very little. It's by like 1 or 2%. It'll be like I don't have it in front of me. Clippers 20%, Suns 19%, Jazz 18%, something like that. But my point is, the Suns could be facing their toughest competition in the first round, which would suck. It's just, I looked at that and I was like, well, that right off the bat is a scenario that I hate. And I hope
I think that's actually accurate too, to be honest. Not necessarily the 7th seed. I think, I don't know. A lot of it depends on like Reggie Jackson and how good Reggie Jackson is. And for the Clippers, by the way, their reliance on Eric Bledsoe, because not a floor spacer. And also, it's kind of interesting because if they're really working off of the last year's stats for the Clippers had a historic season shooting wise. That's not an exaggeration. It was one of the best shooting seasons of any team of all time. I think it was the best corner shooting team ever.
That's what I was about to say. They were the best corner 3-point shooting team ever.
Yeah. I mean, you're a Clippers fan, so yeah, it helps that you know those stats right off the top of your head.
Of course. I can recall them so easily.
But yes.
Me and my, speaking of which, we got to wrap this up. I got to go record my Clippers podcast with Farbad. So.
Oh, Jesus. Here's the thing. Can they rely on that historic shooting? No, they just traded for Eric Bledsoe. That's not going to happen now. Like, that's not going to happen. We've seen what happens when teams rely on. We've been there. You can't really rely on him to have that kind of level shooting. So, if the stats are sort of factoring in expectations based on last year, it's hard to say that that's even going to be the case. Like, if that just goes down a little bit, that's going to be a dramatic difference for them, for one. But still, the main difference is that if you haven't looked at this, if you're looking at playoff performances, Kawhi is one of the best playoff players ever, just based on statistical analysis. So if he ends up in the playoffs against the Suns, that's a different beast. That's different than anything they ran into except for Giannis. And that would be very difficult for the Suns, and I hope that does not happen in the first round. But in general, I think that is one of the biggest challenges for the Suns, because that's a team with two legitimate star players, one MVP level player in Kawhi, and a really good team of role players around them that are capable of picking up the slack. So that's probably the scariest thing for them. The Lakers are kind of interesting. A disastrous preseason for them. They didn't win a single game, and they looked like the Three Stooges essentially out there playing basketball. It was bad.
LeBron was good in their last game against the Kings.
I mean, LeBron is good. Also, can we just stop pretending like Anthony Davis is the best player on that team? I'm so tired of reading people say that.
I have not seen anyone say that as of late.
It's entirely Lakers media based, because it comes from the team, right? Because the team wants to empower Anthony Davis into believing he's the best player on the team. So
are these the same people who try to act like Anthony Davis versus Giannis is still a debate? Because it hasn't been a debate for like 3 years.
Give Anthony Davis Giannis's team is what they say, right? I don't know if it's the same people, but the point is LeBron is better than Anthony Davis, and I feel weird that I even have to mention that, but it's very obvious, I think. But that team is kind of interesting, and here's what I'll say. They looked bad. I'm not going to count that as them necessarily being bad. I'm not even worried about what they are in the regular season. They just have to win enough games on the backs of Anthony Davis and LeBron to make the playoffs. What they are in the playoffs is what I'm worried about. Whether that be they make moves in the regular season, they're clearly a team that players want to play for, and they find the right pieces to fit around the guys to make it work, or even just a few lineups, right? It only has to be a few lineups that work for that team in order for them to be a beast in the playoffs. So I'm not going to count them out yet, but I am interested to see what they're going to look like at the end of the season, whether that be personnel changes or changes based on scheme. The Nuggets, you didn't really bring up the Nuggets there.
They're really good. No,
really
for the
good.
record, for all the memes we say about the Nuggets, and they deserve it because, you got swept. They're really good. They are legitimately a very good team with Jamal Murray.
Yeah. If you... I'm not saying matchup wise. If you want the Suns to meet up with a team in the playoffs, who would you want that to be?
If I want the Suns to meet up with a team in the playoffs, let's give us the first seed and we go against the Grizzlies. or are you talking about like later rounds? That's
matchup related. I'm just talking about like your personal. Who do you want to see the Suns beat, or at least have a chance to beat? Because in my mind, I'm still thinking about Utah. Like I would love to see. Or even the Mavericks to an extent.
Suns, yeah, I think the Mavs are going to be good this year. I've said in the past, I think the Mavs are like my sleeper third or fourth seed. The Utah is interesting. I think that would be a really validating win for Suns fans if it was healthy on both sides. And I think you made a really good point just on Mark's pod the other day. Utah doesn't have any young players. They've got Donovan Mitchell, who's older than Devin Booker. And, they've got guys who are it's kind of struggling at this point. Joe Ingles was still really good last season, but
they're not getting better.
Yeah, they shouldn't. Mike Conley's body is starting to fail on him a little bit, just a little bit. Joe Ingles, I kind of feel like the drop's coming any year. Like he's kind of such an outlier player in what he's able to do without any athleticism whatsoever. Yeah. But
Bogdanovich too, to an extent.
There's only so deep into your 30s that you can do that, and. They're not getting better. The Suns should get better. The Jazz should not get better. It's really as simple as that.
I'll tell you, I think that to an extent, both Dallas and Utah are counting on the same things, and that's their best player elevating them to the best possible team they could be. Yeah. And for Utah, that's Donovan Mitchell, who I think at some point, it's a Trailblazers situation. How happy will he be with a team that continually just runs into a wall at the end of the season and has no real path to improving? And with Dallas, I think you can say KP could be better, and he could, but how much can you rely on the health of someone that's continually injured every year?
Yeah.
It's entirely based on Luka Doncic being great, and that's a good thing to say. Yeah. That's a good reason to rely on that.
I've more or less given up on KP, dude. My faith in the Mavericks is entirely related to Luka, like having his breakout season, like 30, 10, and 10. Or I mean, he's basically already done that, but you know what I mean? It's not KP related whatsoever.
Yeah. And yeah, look, I've said it on Twitter. There's a reason that no player with a usage rate as high as Luka Doncic has ever won a title. You can't rely on someone to do absolutely every single thing for your team. You need, at some point, another player to take some pressure off of Luka that's able to create for other people. Until they find that other player, I'm not as worried about them as I would be, had they had that. But so for me, one of those two teams would be fun to beat, and any of these teams could improve dramatically by the end of the year. It's the Western Conference, and it's scary.
What's your % chance on an implosion, a full-scale trade deadline implosion that leads to either a Dame Lillard trade or a Karl Anthony Towns trade? Either one.
I would say that Portland is very likely. I would rate that one high. Karl Anthony Towns, I hadn't thought about it. It's actually kind of interesting because that team's kind of all over the place. They have young talent. They have Karl Anthony Towns who has to be a little bit frustrated, but maybe he's just going to be happy being healthy.
If you dig deep into the Timberwolves, you realize it's not just Anthony Edwards. Honestly, they have a lot of young players who I think are going to be really good 4 years from now. The problem is Karl Anthony Towns doesn't have that time anymore. He's, a 6. He's going into year 7.
And
he does not have that time.
Everybody blames him. Like at some point, it's got to become frustrating for him to realize that people are no longer appreciating the things that he's good at. This is a pet peeve of mine in general with NBA players. Just appreciate the things they're good at. And every single time people talk about players that aren't on the team that they root for, they only want to talk about the things that they're bad at. He's good at so many things, and he's never really been in an environment that could help him out with the things that he's bad at. So, like, for him, I don't know. It's got to be frustrating at some point, and if they're really bad close to the trade deadline, like how much is he going to love Minnesota at that point? It's interesting. But those two teams blowing up, does that pose any sort of threat to the Suns? I'm not sure. Like maybe if the Clippers find a way to get Damian Lillard or something that's terrifying, or the Lakers even find a way to get Damian Lillard that's terrifying. But I'm not sure that those guys are going to stay in the Western Conference.
I think those teams aren't necessarily the ones that have the most assets. It's interesting because it's like Philly obviously is interested in all these guys. They always are.
Dame's going to get traded where he wants to get traded, I think. Like Portland
owes
him a solid.
Which is why I felt like I had to ask the question. But honestly, if you ask me, those types of moves are much more likely to be made in the offseason. So I don't think it's actually likely to happen as an in-season thing.
Yeah.
It would be fairly unprecedented to happen at the deadline. The deadline type moves tend to be more like the Aaron Gordon trades and whatever. You can get a starting caliber player to stock up. But
all I'm saying is Damian Lillard has that trade request email in his drafts. Like it's ready. If it's
all I'm saying is technically, if both of those guys wanted out by midseason, does OKC not have enough picks to maybe go out and get both of them and pair them next to Shea? And is that not a really fucking terrifying possibility?
Wow. That's fascinating. I love
They
that.
have a million picks.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about how the money
Shea
would
and Karl
work.
Anthony Towns is like, whew.
Well, imagine a Dame. That's like actually like I'm going to go into my league right now on 2K and maybe make that team of Dame, Shea, and Cat simulate a 70-win season. Ananyway,
let me ask
I think
you
we
this
can
before
about
we go.
wrap up. Yeah.
Who is the player you're most excited to watch on the Phoenix Suns this year?
That's so cliche. Mikal Bridges.
Yeah. I'm
I
gonna
really
say Chris
think so.
Paul.
Okay.
It's so fun to watch Chris Paul, man. He's
Appreciate him while he's
remarkable.
Still here.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in an extra podcast every week, check out patreon.com/timeline. You can sign up there, pay a little bit of money to us every month, get some extra content from us. We have very, very, very exciting stuff coming on that Patreon very soon that we're not allowed to tell you about yet. But if you're interested, go ahead and sign up there. I'm very excited about it. I know Sam's very excited about it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Our next episode, we'll be talking about NBA basketball. It's possible we'll be back to talk about contracts very soon, depending on what happens. We appreciate all of you, and go Sun.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.